opening the back of the motherboard bag. And I'm actually just going to set this here for a moment because before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and put in the new shield. And you can smell it has that typical modern, I'm thinking it has to do with the chemicals they use in the manufacturing of this. Now the only question is I'm not 100% sure which direction this goes in. So even though I did pull it out, and this one, again, it's still a bit flexible and flimsy, but here's what's interesting about it. This faceplate that's on here now is actually plastic, whereas the other one was all metal. But it's screen printed instead of just having stuff hard stamped in it, and because it's blackface with the white on it, it's a lot easier to see what you've got, a lot easier to see what ports are what, and it's very specific. So one thing about nowadays is because you have different USB ports, you've got these two up here labeled USB 3.0, these two are 3.0, this one's 3.1, this is also 3.0. So it looks like it's got six 3.3.0 USB ports and 2 USB 3.1 on it. And then here will be your Gigabit Ethernet connector, and then these down here are generally going to be your audio connectors. And this motherboard did not come with a built-in processor on it for, oh, actually, no, I take that back. It does have a connector for HDMI on it, so it does have something of a connector for if you have a video processor on it, but that would be dependent on whether or not you have a, because it's an AMD board, whether or not you have a CPU or an APU. APU being a combination of both a central processing unit and a graphics processing unit built into the same chip. And the other thing about it is it's got this like insulating on the back of it. It's interesting. It feels kind of soft. It's like almost like a foam pad with heat shielding reflector tape on the back of it. And that'll pop in place, but again, I don't want to put them in just yet because I need to pull the board out first and see which orientation it goes in. And here's our new board. And here's interesting about this new board, just for comparison real quick. Let me see if I can get them both in frame. Take that out of the way for a moment. The old board, well, I guess part of it's just the coloration. You can still kind of see all the different lines for the different lanes, if you will, where all the electrical components work. But still, it's the same basic, you know, IOs and stuff. Whereas you had a daughter card on the old one with a fan and everything else, the newer cards, you've got all of these things are kind of put together, and you have just a passive heat shield on it. I guess it's just going to take passive airflow, and then you've got another passive. These look like they're plastic, but they're not. They're actually aluminum, and they're actually heat risers of a sort to help kind of protect the different components that are underneath it. But I mean, it's just so much cleaner. You know, here you have tons of tiny little labels and everything all over it, which is nice in the sense of it really tells you what you've got going on. And it's not this one isn't labeled, but it's just. So here you can see with the M.2 card, it slots into there, and you've got a 42, 60, and 80 or 110 millimeter card length, and depending on the card length, you could probably affects the total amount of memory you can get on it. We're putting a 500 gigabyte, excuse me, SSD in there, effectively solid state drive, and so it slots in, and then the screw holds it down in place. And so the screw right now is preset at the 80 slot. Which is actually what we'll end up using. And let's see what else. This is your clock memory here, brand new. UEFI dual BIOS. I'm not really sure. These are okay. So you've got 2 PCI slots here and 2 small PCI. So these are like, oh gosh, I think these might be 16x or one of them 16x, or maybe they're 8x, and then you've got 1x for different PCI bus componentry that you can connect to there. It's got the audio built onto it. Down at the bottom is your audio connector. TPM, I'm not sure what that is. I'll have to look at the instructions. COM A, USB 1, USB 2, system fan, USB 3. Well, these are the USB 3.0 connectors. I'm guessing this is going to be, it's color coded, so this would probably be if you're going to have front connectors. And you've got a CMOS clear connector there. And that's really about it. And you've got a couple connectors up at the top. This is probably another fan connector. It's just It's got a certain good weight to it. Now, this is supposed to be keyed, and there's a little arrow on the component there. Okay. Just want to make sure I get it oriented correctly before I put it on. It looks like it would go like this. Like that. The arrow going to the corner. I just want to double check before I put it in there, because that's the only one that's actually square, and the other ones have diagonals. If you can see the pins, they run diagonal on the corners, and that one is square. And so if you look at the pins on the board itself, how well this will show up on camera, that's the only one that's square. So that looks like that would go like that. And it should just kind of, oh yeah, just drops right in. Super easy. It takes a little bit more attention to get that down, but bam, that is on. And I just want to double check. Gonna put on my old man eyes. Looks like we're there. Bit of dust on the back. I cannot tell if there's a, that's done, or if there's a, I don't feel like there's any sort of like plastic covering there, but I'll see if I can find the instructions. See if it says anything in there, or some other material that allows the heat to transfer out of it. Well, these things generate so much heat. Even this AM7 processor, I think is, I want to say its base thermal rate is about 65 watts or something. So it's putting out a fair amount of heat just in starting up and operating without really having much of a load on it. And it will quickly overheat those tiny little circuitry components on it if it doesn't have some sort of way to dissipate that heat. So all of this huge thing with this big fan on it is just to pull the heat out of that. And what happens is the surface of this and the surface of this need to stay in good contact with one another in order for that heat to transfer out. Otherwise, this can be sitting on here blowing all the air at once, but it won't actually pull the heat. CPU in place, and we have CPU fan in place. I'm going to put this back in the box just to get it out of the way. Before, so maybe you don't do them matching the colors. Maybe just do them 1 and 2. Hang on, nope. I got it. So I think we're going to end up using the reds, because this will be 1 and 2 as they call it now. But it might be, in the past it would have said 1 and 3, and it would tell you to put the memories in slots 1 and 3. I'm not 100% sure on this. I might have to look up on Gigabyte's website, see if there's any, if that pans out. Yes. So they are not, the key is off-center, and so it only goes in this way. So you just slide them in like that, and it should just pop down, and then the lock should pop into place. At least if I have the line correctly, it should. There we go. And boom, that one's in place. In the past, you would just push them and they would snap in, but these, it feels like I actually have to physically force them in. I'm sorry, physically force the locking pins to come up and lock in. And again, you want to be reasonably careful. It does take a bit of pressure, but you don't want to push it so hard that you could potentially damage the motherboard. And let me just, it just kills me. 500 gigabytes. This is, these two together are 16 gigabytes, yet this is somehow 500, and it's not even a third the size. And here's our M2 slot, which is also keyed. Oh, you know what? I need to take this screw out first. Wear it down. And oops, let's get it aligned correctly. And there you go, 500 gigabytes installed. That's just amazing. And, oh, that's a tight fit. It shouldn't be that tight. It's the standard. There it goes. Ah, no, forgot one thing. Screwdriver. And this one is, I'm going to say maybe an 80 millimeter fan. And the one in there now is over 120. It's like twice the size. It fills up pretty much the whole bottom of the thing. And it's considerably larger overall just because it's a much bigger power supply. The old power supply, 431 watts. Pretty decent for its time frame. This plate on. It's too bad I don't have just a straight square plate. camera around. Or I guess you could do with that. Tighten it like that. And then, see, it kind of rests on these little pins that stick out there. And you put this in here, which I kind of wish it was just a bigger piece all around, just because it would be less restricting. This actually kind of restricts the flow a little bit, but it may not matter. One, two, three, four. Just tighten them all up now. Okay, now slide that bad boy in here. And thumb screws. And the thumb screw holes don't look like they want to line. I put it on backwards or something? I don't think I did. They look like they're reasonably aligned, yet the screw doesn't want to start. I'm going to get it back. We have everything aligned. Okay, 4 thumb screws in, tighten down the faceplate. I think that's in. Got CPU one out for now. All that is just to connect that to here. And it should be keyed. Okay, that's a retainer, so I'm going to believe it's keyed that way. Round pin. So round pin, 2 square, 2 round. I think that's that. Not really a lot of support for the motherboard right there. How did my phone shut off its lamp? I guess it's connected. Doesn't seem like it is. Okay, that power is on. We need to do a bit of cleanup on that. Clean up on aisle 7. Gotta figure out where I'm going to put that. Because then okay, let's get this fan cable out of the way for now. And that's this VGA. Let's set that aside. Looks like it's multiple ports. Actually, let's untie it and look at it for a second. This is the one that I was saying was going to run into the fan header, but the VGA one is also. Pin the right side. There it goes. All right. And then that connects into here. That says ATX 12 volt. I don't know if I need this one or not. Let me figure this out here. Probably needs to go the other way. I don't want to pin together. Square round. Square round. Well, that'll fit. that's installed. Definitely gonna have to do some cable cleanup when I'm done. Okay, and he says VGA, and let me see what other power connectors I need. Well, it has SATA. I think those are external SATA, basically, if you need, oh, to connect the drives themselves, maybe. So right now, I don't really need any of that because I'm not putting any of those drives in, but I do need the VGA. And the SATAs are all down below, which means I don't have to worry about trying to find a spot to fit them. Trying to create some light where you can actually see what I'm doing. At some level, maybe it would have been smarter to actually do this with it out of the computer. But in a way, I'm doing it this way intentionally so I can kind of see how things are going to fit when I get it in the chassis. This one, for one reason or another, just does not want to align. I might have to move the other one first. There it goes. Of course, the phone falls over. All right, so those were the only ones I needed to connect right now. Now let's see if I can get this to slide in. And we got power there. Oh, wow. It just fit. If I had to put those on first, I would never have gotten it to fit. And of course, all that power right there is pretty much blocking that fan. Particularly the ATX power. I'll have to see if I can route it around somehow. But it's all in there, and all I have to just do the SATA stuff, which I can do that later because it's all below. And so now he says I can put the thumb screws back in, which of course probably won't align again. So, are you recording or not?
No, I am.
Okay, let me shut this off real quick. All right, so here's a little issue I have. These fans, or the older style, they use the Molex 4-pin, but they only have 2 power pins coming out of them to go to the fan. It means you've got a red power lead and a black ground, and I'm pretty sure they're 5-volt. The problem I have is that I don't have any old standard Molex connectors on the new power supply, which means I have to come up with some sort of an adapter in order to connect the case fans, or I won't have any case fans. And that's kind of important for the design of this system. So I may need to come up with some Molex to, and they're actually, I don't even think there are any fan power supplies coming off that. There is a peripheral power supply. I might be able to do that, use that as my source. Let's see what that looks like. Yeah, so that's going to be my fan power right there. Okay, and that does actually have a Molex connector on it, so that's good. All I can do now is I need to daisy chain the fans together so that I can connect them all with a single Molex. Actually, this has got 3 Molexes on it, so this may do the trick. Now I need my light again. It's probably a good thing we looked at this. So there is my peripheral connector, which is right there, and I gotta get it to line up, and there it goes. I start to move the fan away right as I'm trying to get, there we go. All right, so that's good. Now I have fan power, which is good. I was a little concerned about that. I thought I was going to go buy an adapter. I have my CPU power, which if I can just tie it up somehow out of the way from that fan, it would be better as much as possible. Unfortunately, I don't really have anything to tie to the top. I do have some little holes there. I might be able to tie it into this. Obviously not with the straps that come with it, but with some cable ties. And then I just need to do some cleanup in terms of the cabling, because obviously it's just all hanging loose in here right now. This is my VGA connector, which is got in for this card, so it's going to plug in right here. And I just need to stick these together. And not quite aligned. Why isn't it one aligned? There we go. Well, had it, and then it snapped off. Unfortunately, because of the modular design, these pins are just kind of, extra pins are kind of put wherever they need to be, and they don't always want to stay together when you put them together. And it kind of, there we go. kind of need them together in order to plug this in. Now, I gotta believe this is gonna go this way, because otherwise you'd never be able to get it back out. So you got two square and 2 round. These all look round. The bottom one's square, but the rest of them all look round. I don't know if this is gonna fit, unless I'm not seeing it correctly. Oh, there it went. All right, GPU is power. We'll have to tie these cables up somehow. And all I really need to do is tie up the fans on the peripheral, but before I do that, man, it really helps to have this extra light, doesn't it? Yeah. All right, unfortunately I can't hold it and do what I need to do. So in the bag are some ties. These are just Velcro ties, but they'll do the trick for getting the bigger pieces out of the way. Tie this together, and let's see, tie this. That actually I want to tie it like there, because of where I want it to locate, so let's leave that alone for the moment. This I want to tie up like this somehow. Maybe tie it like that. And then I'll have to tie strap it to somehow to the I may do additional cleanup later on, but for now I just kind of want to get things placed, because I still got to power up and make sure everything functions. And this is the CPU power. And again, it'd be nice to have it. I need to have it off that fan, obviously. And ideally, I need to have it away from the other fans. Don't really have anything to tie it to up there yet. In a more modern case, I would probably have some sort of hole I could run this through, but right now I don't really see anything. I mean, there are some holes down here, but none of that power really runs that way. I mean, it's possible I could have run this. Unfortunately, there's no hole to run power through into the back side of the chassis and bring it around. So I would have to run it down the front of the chassis anyway. I could bring it out over here and then bring it up. I might redo that way just to make it a little cleaner. See how that works in a moment here, if I can get this to tie. I'm so in love with these, I may end up doing something different. Now, because I decided, the only trick with that is I don't know if I can get both sets of plugs, since this has got a double plug on it. I don't know if I can get them both through there or not. The idea would be to run it down like this, so it's not in the middle of the chassis. Yeah, I'm not sure I could fit that through there. Yeah, it's too big. Okay. Well, that's an idea. But actually running it that way seemed to help. At least it's not in the middle of the chassis now. It's kind of off to one side. Get this to plug back in. Would have, but for these other two, they don't want to stay together. There it goes. Alright, so then that can get tied down there. And I'll have to come up with a way to I may feed it behind there actually when I get around to putting it together. Alright, so we've got that's another Molex. I gotta figure out how to put all those together. These are USB. Oh, that's speaker, power, reset, hard drive LED, power LED. So those go into there, and they are color coded, but I'm gonna have to figure out. There's also this plug that may be preset. I don't know, I might be able to do the whole plug in there. It's kind of tight because it's tied down. I might have to untie it first. I don't know, because these are different pin rows. the problem is this isn't going to work because these are positive and positive, and I need negative. I'm male and female, so I don't have them connected, so I do need this connector on here after all. Just make sure I'm putting it on correctly. And it seemed like it was correctly, but it was kind of crooked. I don't bend any pins. Alright, that looks good. Alright, so these are labeled, which is kind of nice. So we have power LED right there. This is one of those moments where I wish I had a standoff to fit behind that. And that's HDD LED, which I can't really read. The other one's speaker. Speaker's on top of power. Okay, and then I thought I had it on there, but maybe not. Boy. We have 3 that I can't read. Power switch. Something LED. Alright, so we have 3 2-pin connectors. And I have 1, 2, 3, effectively 4. I don't know what the CI plus. I might have to read the manual on that. Power switch, I'm assuming, is that red one right there. Thankfully, this isn't making me cross-eyed or anything trying to look at these things because they're so small. And what do we got? We got reset switch, which is next to the power switch on this. Okay, and that leaves hard drive, which I think that's what these are, hard drive LEDs. Why is that the only one that's snapped in place, seemingly? Down as much as they want to go. Alright, no. I think I connected the reset in the wrong spot. Yeah. Well, that's gonna be fun. The only thing I wonder is if these are directional or not. I might have to look that up. That's a really tight fit. Let's just do this. Let's plug the reset first. There we go. And then this is the power, which is right above it. Okay, and then this is the hard drive LED, which is right there. That leaves power LED, which seems to be missing, which is strange. Maybe this one's just fed right off the switch. And CI. Now, where is... That's not... Oh. I need to borrow that for a minute. Pause for a moment. And let's do this. So there it is, all put together. USBs are plugged in, power and other switches from the front are plugged in. The hard drive cases are in, but cages rather are in, but there are no hard drives in at the moment because I have the 500 gig M.2 drive underneath the card, which is the video card, which is ready to go. EMD's plugged in. Did a bit of cable management. You can look up in here. Just kind of tied them up for now. Did what I could to kind of neaten it up a little bit. It's going to be kind of hard to really route that much cleaner because the cable sizes and the fact that there's really no place to hide it behind the motherboard backing plate or behind the motherboard. I did run one cable kind of behind the motherboard, but there you go. It's definitely a lot cleaner than it was before. Down here, these are all of the SATA connectors right there, which are right where the hard drives are going to be. So for the most part, that'll keep all of that cabling kind of out of the way. They can just go right up here where the hard drives will be. And pretty good. it's all put together. Now I need to power up and see if it'll post, and then I can start to put things back together. Oh, I just realized I don't have this in all the way, so I still got to clean that up too. Your mom's watching Purple in there.